Alrighty then. Usually I would say gentleman, but clearly not today, buddy.
Wait, so not a gentle man?
Gentleman.
Man?
Indeed,
Gentle
that's probably what I
person.
gotta say. Yeah, gentle
Uh,
person. We could go with that. Hey, everybody,
uh,
how you doing? Welcome to another episode of The Living Room. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. You're here on our platform at We Global. If this is your first time, I'm here with, I'm Andre, and I'm here with my good friend Philip. We'll tell you about Mark in a second.
yeah,
But it's just us today. So that's going to be good.
yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us. If this is your first time, you're here in the living room where we just have good old Caribbean conversations. We talk with people from all across the region about whatever it is we feel like talking about any given week. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hit like, hit subscribe if you're on YouTube. Ring the bell so that you get notifications. Follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter as well, at We Global or at We Global Media. Thank you for joining us this Sunday afternoon if you're in the Caribbean, evening if you're in Europe. So thanks for joining us. How are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Man, look you
I
there,
am.
look.
Yeah, man. You peeping into the louvers. Peeping
Peeping
into the
in.
louvers.
Why is it peeping, man?
Yeah,
You
man.
peepee.
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
You
Yeah,
good?
doing okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to
How
think
was the
what's been
week?
on. The
Hey,
week has
bro.
been okay as usual, dipping into to various little projects and so on.
Meaning?
Projects, as in, I always have something
What? So
cooking up.
what going
Oh, you
on?
want
What
to
project
hear?
you got? What
Yeah,
about?
so I have
Tell.
so I'm working on a book. I don't want to say too much about it. I've been told talking about your book to a wide audience isn't a good
Oh,
thing.
okay. Hey, Karen.
Bit bad luck, but working on that.
Okay, good. I won't go into any details about that. Keep that on the
Okay,
wraps until when you're ready.
when I'm
Yeah, yeah,
ready
yeah.
to bring that out. But
Yeah.
I'm enjoying working on that. I've also been working on my day job, of course.
No, I hope so.
Yes, hard, really, really hard. Yes, but then I've also been working on this idea I call community design. A community design is trying to transfer my sort of experience of designing systems, using software and so on,
Okay.
into what does that look like if we apply these same techniques and thinking to communities? Can we
Right.
actually start to define the features of communities, the structure of
Got it.
communities, the capabilities of communities that we want, and then come up with strategies for implementing that?
Hey, Jennifer. See you there.
And yeah, and I'm just finding some interesting analogies and ways of doing it. I'll tell you what I have in mind for the future with this. I do have
Oh,
in
this.
mind,
Okay.
yeah, with
Go
this
ahead.
particular thing, I do have
All
in
right. Go
mind
ahead.
to take this into communities where there's probably a bit of, let's say, gangs, for example,
Oh, okay.
where there's that sort of work on.
So working with like the local council and working with people to see how you could come up with different
I actually just want to work
ways.
with. I want to work with
Or
young
you're
men,
going direct. You're going on the block.
direct, yeah, direct into the block.
All right.
And I feel as though there are a lot of boys in that environment, and I'll come back to why I'm looking at young men in particular, because people say, oh, I'm sure it would be valid for young girls as well. It is,
Hey, Sharon.
but I know at least here in the UK and maybe in the Caribbean as well, there's a real particular issue with young men, and to be honest, it is quite often young black men, um, for reasons, for mostly socioeconomic reasons, um, falling into the gangs. Just this week here in Manchester, we had a young 16-year-old boy stabbed to death,
Yeah.
um, and this seems to be quite a common thing in some parts of Manchester, that you have this
Okay.
sort
So
of
when you gonna
operate.
get going with that then? Actually going
Start,
into the community.
I've started chatting with a friend who has links in one of the communities I'm looking at. So hopefully this week we'll start thinking of how to do that. But I
All
just
right.
thought, you know what, I have the thinking in place. I just need to sit alongside um, someone who's already socially engaged,
Yes.
right, and work with them to see how can we actually work with young men to transfer skills of systems thinking,
Yeah.
which they're not going to encounter even in their school. Those who are still in school, they're not going to encounter that sort of training, that sort of way of viewing the world.
Okay. I like the
Um,
idea. I'm liking it.
but then give it a real application. And the real
Okay.
application is, how do you start to design the community you dream? If this is a community you dream, how do you design it? And then how do you implement it? What are the
Ah,
ways that you can start to pour into your community to achieve what you dream? And it would be a good way of rising up community leaders, but also maybe working with, as you said, say the councils and so on as well.
yeah, because it's
Look at,
sometimes when you know, because what you're doing is great stuff, but you know, there's some other people who are a bit down the track in some cases and partnering with
indeed,
somebody
yeah,
who's in already. You know,
yeah,
it is good to see.
yeah. So
You know,
really,
so it's good to do that.
yeah. So I'll see
Yeah,
when
so
that
sound
takes
good.
off. Yeah.
Sound good, man. Sound good. Sound good. For me, I've been just back out to work, heading in on the train here recently, a couple of days a week and stuff. But I
Mm.
must admit, I tell myself, you know, I like I standing home for another few weeks here because
Why is that?
obviously, I know, because here are things in the UK, guys, if you don't know, the things in the UK, you seeing the hospital rates going back up again because school has started back, and you know what you soon follows after that. Here, hospital rates going back up again, loads of cases again. I more look at the hospital rates, to be honest with you,
Mhm.
and then deaths are on the rise again, and then as well on the train you realize I follow the protocols, I wear my mask, I do all that kind of
Mm.
stuff. But then when you look around you realize that 75% of the people aren't. So you kind of go like, hang on, me wearing this mask is about me protecting you, but none of y'all
You're
ain't wearing your
protecting me.
mask. So now my mask becomes mute, and it's like, well, this is crazy. So it's one of those ones that I just tell myself, you know what, I think I can put a little pause on myself for a little bit, you know, probably just going once a week as opposed to I was going to get it up to 3 or so days a week. And then I just kind of
Okay.
pull back from that a little bit and just like, nah,
You
I
find
think.
you find yourself still very disciplined with mask wearing and social distancing and not going in for the hug, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore. All that I did. I don't bother with all that. I
Hugging
just
is last 2 years
hello.
ago.
Well, I was never really a hugger,
Same
so
here,
this
B.
is good for me. So
Sorry,
I
don't say we
still
get me hugging. You know me. Hugging is
yeah, yeah.
in
I'd be
three
like,
taps. If it's
yeah,
more
two
than three
taps,
taps, yeah, even
exactly.
two.
And that is even when I know you. So if I really know you, let me just how
Yeah,
you doing? Good to see you. I ain't see you in a while. We all right. Keep
like
it
this
moving.
elbow stuff.
I
Love
don't
it.
even do that. That
You
is
don't do that.
that's
I
too much
love that. That's good.
motions. Too much motions. I don't bother about all that there. I just how you doing? My feeling is that all we understand where we are today. So
Mm.
nobody should feel insulted if I just go like that. My view is read my body language in the context of today, and that should tell
He's
you
very unfriendly.
where
He
you at
is
with that.
very
Yeah,
unfriendly.
if you want to cover that, you could probably say that 2 years ago. But in the context of today, I would expect that anybody who just get a
He's normal.
how you doing, just saying
Yeah.
in their head, okay, I see how to deal with this person in the context of today. To me, that's
Mm.
how it go. I don't give no hugs. I ain't
I see
about that.
Corbin, they talking free hugs over here.
But he can hug. That's all
Yeah.
right. That's all right. He can hug. He
He
can
was
hug.
always more of a more of a hugger. I
That's
think
why when he
always.
come here next time again, let he come through the side gate, and he can use the garage or so.
Was he not? Was he not
Who
bad?
was he down? Scruffy down, and then you can come in now. Still the hugging though.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so I don't really be about that. I don't really be about that.
Fair
But
enough.
and then also I was looking at because obviously yesterday, 20th anniversary of September 11th, and I was just thinking about that because
Okay.
we as Caribbean people, because sometimes not remember that or not
Mm.
necessarily think about it that much because we think it's something that happened over there. But the fact
Yeah.
of the matter is, from a global perspective, September 11th was a very significant day and impacts even
Shit.
things that happen today.
Yeah.
And even beyond that as well, many Caribbean people were impacted by September 11th, i.e., losing their lives on the day. People
Hmm.
from Guyana, like, I had a whole list of names of people here, like Patrick Adams from Guyana, and then you come down here to Jamaica, and John Sylvester, and Keith Brumfield, and Dolores Forbes, and you come all the way down Barbados, Colin Arthur, Bermuda, Rochelle Sherry, British Virgin Islands, Calvin Dawson, Virgin, Lucy Francis from Dominica, and the list goes on and on and on. Those are West Indian people,
Wow. Wow.
right? People who migrated, people who were working there on ground zero, and people who lost their lives. So loads of families at home in the Caribbean and those who migrated were
Mm.
impacted on September 11th. So to any family who lost loved ones, condolences there. We don't forget it because we were heavily impacted by that as well. So it wasn't something that just happened over there or
Yeah.
to the Americans, so to speak. We could all probably remember where we were actually when that
Do you
happened.
remember where you were?
I do. I can ask the others when they come in too. I do
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
where I
yeah.
was actually. I
That'd be
was in
good.
the cafeteria at CIBC at the time, which eventually turned into First Caribbean. And I was in the
Okay.
cafeteria when we saw the monitors and went like, hang on, what's going on there? And then you saw the second one hit as well. So yes, I
Yeah.
do remember where I was at the time.
I was in London that particular day. I just remember people walking. Everybody was walking around looking up at the sky every time you heard it because I was quite close to Heathrow, and every time people heard airplanes, they were like, "Oh," just
Oh,
really
seriously,
nervous, really
just wondering what
unsettled.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned others, so tell me, who do we have in the living room today?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So look, we were talking. We always seeing all the resurgence of COVID
Mm.
across the region. We're seeing all the protocols either being strengthened, or whether it be curfews and not really lockdowns, but curfews or a state of emergencies and what's not being
Mm.
extended, as in the case of Trinidad and Tobago. In Barbados, we see extended curfews in Jamaica, in Grenada. Then we're seeing a whole bunch of people marching against vaccinations and what's not. So COVID is very much
Present.
still alive and well and kicking in the Caribbean as a topic is concerned.
Yeah,
And when we started this program, that's where we started actually,
indeed. Remember
looking
that.
at COVID across the region. And we just thought it's probably time to have a little bit of a revisit and see how people doing, what's
Yeah.
happening, how are
Have we
people
moved on?
feeling, and what's not. And so that's where we're going to have that conversation. We're going to start with Barbados and we're going to start with and Trinidad as well, Trinidad and Tobago as well. So we have
Down
Dr.
south.
Adrian Lord from Barbados. We have Alicia Nichols from Barbados as well, and my good friend Vonette Bigford from Trinidad and
Mm.
Tobago. So we can just bring them in and we can just have a good old Caribbean conversation.
Looking forward to it. Good.
Indeed.
It's Dr. Lloyd.
Hey guys, how we doing?
Yeah.
Hi.
Everybody's good?
Pretty while, you know.
Good, 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 good. We were just talking about September 11th just now. Do you guys remember where you were when all that unfolded?
Yes.
Oh,
I was in the office. I was
mm-hmm.
downstairs. We had a two-story office building. I was downstairs doing my normal thing, and my manager flew down the step. And he said, Vonnet, you all need to come upstairs and see what's happening. And I remember
Oh,
exactly the expression on his face and everything. I can never forget that.
and yeah. Did it compute what was actually happening at the time? Because I took a few minutes. I was like,
You take
I
a
don't
few
understand what's.
you take a
I
few
was like,
days. I take a few days.
yeah. No, but I mean, even to understand the what was actually happening. At first, I was like, is it a crash? What's
Yes,
happening? I
yes,
don't understand what
yes.
I'm
Like,
looking at
is the
here.
Correct.
building on fire?
Yeah, I wasn't
Indeed.
sure at all. I wasn't sure. I think we all would have been in the same because you're not expecting anything like that. I think we all would have been in the same position. It's like, what's going on here? Don't
What's
you?
going on? Yeah, yeah. Alicia,
Yeah.
you remember where you were when all that happened?
Yeah, I was actually in, I think, either fourth or fifth form at my school, Combermere, at the time.
No.
So
Mm-hmm.
Hold on.
I was in.
Guys, sorry, I'll come back to you. Said a word there, magic
He getting
word.
excited by
Oh,
coming
you're
here.
Combermerean off and on.
Up and on.
Oh,
Yeah, so
We will pick that back up. I didn't even recognize
yeah,
that.
that's okay.
okay.
Yeah, so I was in history class during the time, and I remember I don't know if Reverend Morris would have taught you as well, Philip, but he
He
had taught
did.
me history exactly. So he had
Mm.
come into the class and he said that a plane just went into the World Trade Center. We were like, what? So at that time, there were monitors in the class and we were watching it and we were just gobsmacked. We couldn't believe it. I mean, your fifth form students. I mean, it feels good to be able to tell my students this and not date myself because because when I tell them this, I was in fifth form, they're like, Mom, you were in fifth form? I'm like, yes. So yeah, I
That's good.
definitely
The rest
remember.
of me the working, so we even work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I realized I
Yeah,
did
so,
not.
so I don't
So-
mind telling the story in this setting.
You can tell us in this second. When you said Fifth Farm, I was like, "Whoa, wow, okay,
Yeah.
okay."
Yeah.
I actually saw Reverend Morris 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago. We were in Coventry.
Oh, nice, because he's in England now.
Yes.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
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 yeah. We
yeah.
saw him.
Yeah.
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 No, that's good.
He's
Good.
doing all
Dr. Lord, welcome.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
Good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. Yeah, I was actually, I'm fine. I was actually in office and I got a phone call. Turn on the TV because we didn't have. I didn't have the television on. I was seeing patients, but I think CBC actually broke and they put the CNN feed on, and I saw the towers on fire.
Yeah,
Smoke.
yeah, yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It was a movie. And then I tried to and before we could know it, the Pentagon was struck again as well.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it was a memorable day, 9/11. I remember traveling 2 weeks after that, and
Oh, wow.
life was
So
not the
soon.
same.
Yeah.
The security
How
restrictions.
long did it take you to get through the airport?
Oh gosh, it took ages, and I actually flew on 4 American Airlines flights
Oh.
to get to my destination. I
Oh,
left
wow.
here, and at that time we were able to go to Puerto Rico. I went to Puerto Rico, endless security, caught another flight to Miami. Then I went to Sao Paulo in Brazil and went to another state in Brazil, all on American Airlines. And each time it was it was anxiety,
I can imagine.
harrowing. It was really something else. But that day, 9/11 was a day that we would never forget.
It was dark. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And as I was saying earlier, the Caribbean was very heavily impacted in terms of people dying, losing their lives, and in the aftermath of that as well. So, it wasn't something that happened over there or happened to them. It happened to us, man. It happened to everybody across the world, So it's something that we should even take a pause and just remember sometimes, because I think it was like nearly 50 or 60 people of Caribbean descent or people who migrated, not even just second generation, actual people who just migrated to the US who lost their lives on that day, actually. I don't know if that's widely known across the region or if you pay attention to it that often, but it's a lot of people. When I was looking through it, quite a lot of people. So that's interesting to see. Fast forward 20 years. I don't know if you feel safer or
No,
not.
it's a good point because you could easily sort of disassociate yourself from the emotion of it. But when you start to talk about how close to home it was, because I remember watching it on TV. I was in London. I was by my aunt. I think she did cuckoo and herring that day, as far as I remember.
You remember the food.
You know?
Because I remember the distinction
Wow.
between how I felt eating that cuckoo with the okra and how I felt when I saw what I saw on TV.
Okay.
It was this bizarre feeling of. At first, I thought the buildings were on fire. I said, "Okay, and I have an aunt who lives in New York as well. So I was like, "Oh, that's dreadful that these buildings are on fire." And then when we actually saw the second plane fly in,
Yeah.
and then when you saw the buildings crash,
When they came
start to hit
down
you.
as well. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I think that was the worst part for me.
Yeah.
Was actually seeing them just come down.
Yes.
And then the cloud, ash and smoke and stuff, and then you saw different people just covered who were like.
And then you start
a
to
few-
calculate how many people.
Exactly.
I don't know if you've ever been into those buildings or in the Empire State, and right when you start, all those things start to go through your mind. Like, I've actually visited that space. I've actually been in there. I know how many people are in. I have an idea of how many people are in there, and so on. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Yeah. It's a rough one.
quite a hard one.
Yeah, I used to love flying a lot prior to that, I must admit. I can only date it back now to why I kind of, every now and then I feel a bit claustrophobic in planes now. Whereas before I used to be fine. Now I almost purposely fall asleep before the plane even take off. And I only now realizing that that's probably a little bit of a defense mechanism there that I kind of generate over the years. Because if you pause and allow yourself to think about it, especially when they're going to Caribbean from here, which is 8.5 hours, you would just lose yourself. It's like, oh, I can't even think about this, so let me just fall asleep and wake up with an hour to go or something like that, you know. But anyway, yeah, interesting.
Are you open till you hear the trolleys coming around?
No, I miss that too. I don't even.
What?
Sometimes I miss the food too. That's the thing,
Really?
which is bad considering how much flights cost. I should be making sure I get every inch of what I pay for.
Get that little
So-
piece of chicken in the gold foil.
Yeah, exactly. With a little 2 pound fork that you can't really hold properly.
Yeah.
You know, so I should make sure. Hey, Gene, how you doing? But yeah. But anyway, let's hope that people remain safe. You remember it. Remember our Caribbean brothers and sisters and what's not. But
Even
COVID.
travel now. Since you're talking about COVID, travel
Well,
again.
Well, this is true too.
Yeah.
So, Alicia, let's start with you from a COVID perspective. First, how are you doing? Before we get into all of Barbados and how people going and all that. Personally, how are you doing?
Okay, so on a personal level, I'm fine. I'm fully vaccinated. I'm fully within the vaccination crowd.
Okay.
I know it's pretty much in vogue to be an anti-vaxxer these days, but I am fully
Is it?
for vaccination.
You think it in
but
vogue or they just the loudest? What do you think? Or people?
to be
Because I'm a very
honest,
fashionable person, and
from the
You could
people
tell.
that I've spoken to, and I don't get in debates with anti-vaxxers because my thing is that look, that's your choice. I really don't care what you do, but at the end of the day, I think that you have to bear in mind that not everybody could be vaccinated. Some people have medical issues, as I'm sure probably Dr. Laura will speak a bit about. Some people for religious reasons, etc. So I really don't get into debates on vaccination, but in terms of where I stand, I'm fully on board with vaccination. I'm fully vaccinated. But even so, I think that vaccination is only part of the process because as we know now, you could be vaccinated but still spread the disease to some extent. Right?
Yeah.
So what I do is that I still follow the protocols. I still always wear masks. Even if I go downstairs and crossing the road to the shop or whatnot, I still have I put on my mask. I try to be as compliant with the protocols as possible. I mean, my unvaccinated friends can't come at my house. Sorry,
Oh,
that's just
you
how
set
it
those
is.
rules.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
no, but you have to protect yourself. I mean, I
There
respect
you go.
your decision not to be vaccinated, but respect my position that I would prefer to be, in the company of persons that are vaccinated, right?
Okay.
So, but in terms of how I see it, I mean, I one of the things that concerns me the most is the impact on kids. I don't have kids, but I could
Okay.
see the impact that it's having in terms of, and I teach adults. So I
Yeah.
could only imagine how it is for teachers who are teaching children and the amount of stuff that the children are missing out on, not just in terms of education wise, but also in terms of their social development. So even though I myself am not personally affected by COVID, I
Right.
could see the effect within society.
Within society. Okay.
Yes.
That's good. No, good. And Vonette, how you doing? How you doing over there in Trinidad and Tobago?
I'm good today.
You good today? Oh, explain.
What happened
You have
yesterday?
good and bad days?
And that's me being brutally honest. I'm good today because I'm not good all the time.
Okay.
And I'm very honest about that.
Yeah.
I'm not good all the time. It's a constant battle for balance and peace and, in inverted commas, normalcy somewhat. And I've found that it's easier for me when I take it one day at a time.
Right.
Yeah, I find that I get the bouts of anxiety and the depression and the worry and everything else that's not necessarily directly related to the physical thing that can happen if you get COVID, but all that mental stuff that's happening.
When
Just
you get the
try-
anxiety, what are you thinking about? What's in what? What's
Because I tell people I'm a planner. I don't want to say I'm a control. I don't like the word control, but I like to know that
okay.
I have a general idea, the direction that my life is
Direction
headed.
travel. Yeah.
Yes, you
That's fine.
understand? And I've found that I just don't have that control now. I just don't. I've been affected by COVID because I'm an entertainer, I'm a musician. So of course our industry has been totally shut down. We can't earn. We have musicians in Trinidad and Tobago who have not earned 1 cent since March of last year.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
18 months down. This is
Jeez.
18 months. I mean, so you can imagine you're planning, even, I mean, initially in the initial stages of COVID, no way did we think that we would be 18 months into
True.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
No
I
way.
agree.
I
No way.
remember those days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the even for the persons who plan well, like I was asking someone on social media the other day, even if you plan well, how many persons can actually plan to comfortably exist without their income for 18 months? If you were
True.
very, very honest, you tell me, and I ask people that honestly, can you do without your salary for 2 months or 3 months, much less for 18 months?
I agree. True.
So it's an extremely difficult place to be at, especially for us creatives and other industries as well. But I'm talking from
You
the
speak,
perspective.
speak from your perspective. Yeah.
I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
from the perspective as an entertainer, a musician, and other creatives. It's been a difficult road for us. And for me, what makes it worse is that I don't know when it's going to end.
I think that's the thing too. I think the not knowing when you're coming out of it is the difficult part of it. You know, I saw in Barbados recently where initially school was going to start on the 20th of September, I believe, where folks were expected to go back into the classroom, and then boom, press conference, and you heard, oh, by the way, no, we're doing online schooling. From the 20th, full online schooling. Dr. Lord, how you doing? And on that perspective, on how people just not sure what's happening, and then had an expectancy, and then it changes last minute. You're on mute.
Yeah, that is what this pandemic is all about. The uncertainty of the future and the fluidity of the situation as well. Because you as Vonette said, sometimes you cannot plan. We did not expect to be at this place at this time at all. None of us. Yeah, as you know, I've done a number of videos, and if I go back to look at the first ones I did, it's nothing like what I'm going to say now.
No.
So things have changed. The vaccines are here, and that is the little silver lining on the cloud that we have now to help to produce, to help to save us, and to give us some semblance of normalcy. Hopefully, new normalcy, by the way, in the future, because
New
we
normalcy,
need
yeah.
to now reset everything that we do, the way that we do. As far as I'm concerned, I have been out there on the front line, seeing patients who have concerns, seeing patients who are now not working, seeing patients who are not putting their health first, seeing patients because of decreased income, their ability to come to the doctor. I'm a private physician, a family physician. The priorities that they have, and those who are working have to help those who are not working. So the health is being put on the back burner. I'm seeing a situation where the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, our main public hospital in Barbados, is suffering not directly from COVID-19 patients because we have a facility that's dealing with that, but the staff of our hospital, they are dealing with the patients at the facility. So if you now have a health problem, and may be urgent, it may be a brain tumor, as I have one patient who's been waiting for months now to have his brain tumor resected. It could be cancer, it could be appendicitis, which is an acute situation, which I'm sure that they will find a way to deal with. But chronic conditions are now being delayed as far as seeking medical and specialist and tertiary care, because these doctors are overworked, overwhelmed, and they're spending some of their time dealing with the COVID-19 patients. There are also those who are not dealing with them, have now to deal with their own patients and restrict the number of patients they see because of all the protocols and the cleaning and the sanitizing in between patients. So the number of patients they would see in, say, an outpatients clinic or ward rounds. So it's been a difficult situation here as far as health is concerned. But the answer, as I see it, is getting the jab. The jab, which
jab.
the vaccine, in case you don't know.
No, I know the jab, man.
Yeah.
The joke, jab vaccine.
We now have in
Get
the
stick. I
Caribbean.
know.
In the Caribbean, I think we have enough vaccines to deal
After a
with,
slow start.
to deal with
After a slow
what's going
start.
on at this time. But we need to get those people who need to consent to having the vaccine to go ahead and Alicia did say that, you know, she has several friends who she's not invited to her home, but I know invited vaccine or no vaccine, you don't come by my house.
Nobody
Wow.
come call you. Hey, Didi, call you. Okay. Well, so this, I guess, when you talk about it, we had a slow start. Covax and all this stuff initially wasn't working. We had some donations. And then the vaccine came. It seemed as if people were responding. It seemed like that. In Barbados and Trinidad, you had lines like Bush, people waiting to get vaccines. But that seemed to be initial rush, and then it just dropped off. And then I don't know what happened. You know, people start looking at the internet. They start dealing with what's going on. They start listening to all kinds of different things. And everybody went, hold on. We ain't doing that. Why is the hesitancy? What are we seeing out there as to why there's this hesitancy to get vaccinated?
I mean, I'm so disappointed. I'm just disappointed, and because, and I guess more so because I'm somewhat dependent, or really hoping that we get vaccinated so that we could get back to some state of being able to do what we could do. So I was really hoping that, because initially this thing was, we don't have enough vaccines, and then we got AstraZeneca, and then the next thing was we don't want this brand, we're waiting for this. So now we have all kind of brand of vaccine. We have more brand than a mall.
You didn't understand.
People still not going to take the vaccine. So then what then? So then the issue wasn't really the vaccine or the brand. For me, I mean, and I say it all the time, I have the utmost respect for people and the choice that they make as relates to what goes on with their bodies. But when you see your choice start to interfere with me, this is when I start to kind of pull back, because I'm telling you, generally the percentage of people who cannot be vaccinated or who don't want to be vaccinated for religious and health reasons, it's it's a very small percentage, you know. The majority of people who I hear spewing or sharing the anti-vax thing, I think is just basically social media information. They see, they can't tell you, they can't cite sources, they can't tell you. I recently talking about, there's this woman, and this woman had so many blood clots, and I said, well, you know what, she should go to the doctor. Who is this woman? A woman from the village by us. I said, well, let's get her and take her to the doctor. Up to now, the woman ain't appear yet. These are the things that are aggravating me, you know, the fact, and a lot of the people, Andre, a lot of the people, guys, who are spewing this kind of information are people who some of the times are not directly impacted. So some of them have been in their jobs and they have not lost 1 month of salary since this pandemic started. So they can afford to sit and say, well, let me share this anti-vax thing, or why I'm not going to get, because they're not feeling the effects of it. It's not hitting them directly.
That's an interesting insight. So what will be the incentive then for taking that particular line if they're not directly affected?
I don't know. I thought maybe the children, because let me give you a prime example. My son is 8 years old. My son has been in this house maybe for the last, my son has been going absolutely nowhere. And I'm talking about not even 10 minutes to my grandfather's house. But I took him there the other day. Most of the people in the house, including my 96-year-old grandfather, has recently been vaccinated, fully vaccinated. So I took him there because he hadn't seen them in about 3 or 4 months. And when it was time to come home, that child started to cry. And he said to me, he said, Mommy, I am so tired. I am so tired of being in the house and just seeing you and daddy alone. I want to see my friends. I want to. And I felt, and I'm thinking sometimes we
Yeah.
really take for granted how these children are feeling.
Yeah, because some people say all they need is a screen and playing the thing, but that's not true.
Yeah.
They want to, sometimes they retreat to the screen, yes, but they want to be out there, having fun, talking to people, socializing, interacting and stuff as well. So
And that
sometimes you're right. You could think, the kids will be fine. It's the older people you got to worry about.
Yeah.
and that is one of the effects of this pandemic, and the children, the lack of socialization. I think that is a big problem. Children don't go to school and play and have friends and create boyfriends and girlfriends, um, anymore. They're always on the screen. And in Barbados, I'm not sure when we will get face to face classes. I think the ministry is hoping that most of the children in the 12 to 18 age group would take the vaccine so that they can start at secondary. But what about the primary schools? We have no vaccine for them. So we need to protect them by vaccinating ourselves. And that hesitancy, and I looked up the definition for vaccine hesitancy, and it says it refers to delay in acceptance or refusal of vaccines despite the availability of vaccine services. So whereas we didn't have the vaccine services before, we now have, as you said, we have everything. And now they're saying, okay, I'm waiting on the Cuban vaccine. Um, we're waiting on Johnson and Johnson, and Johnson and Johnson's in Trinidad. We don't have it, and I think it's in Jamaica. We don't have it here in Barbados. So we are flying up to US to get the Johnson and Johnson. It is very complex, and it's influenced by a lot of factors: complacency, convenience, and confidence. And how could we have dealt with this situation? We needed to recognize that this was a possibility, that this was happening, that there are conspiracy
Yeah.
theories out there, and we needed to be proactive. And I think what we're
When you
doing,
say we needed to be proactive, what do you mean?
we meaning all of us, the government, the Ministry of Health, the doctors,
Communication and what's not. Yeah.
communication,
People, yeah.
communication was important. Um, Yesterday, for instance, yesterday evening, there was supposed to be a meeting with the preteens and teens and teachers, which didn't come off because of technical problems. This evening, for instance, at 6, the Ministry of Health, they're meeting with the doctors after the Prime Minister has already said that private doctors are going to be involved in the provision of vaccines. So
Yeah.
that needs to be done before. We had town hall meetings in Barbados this year. Those should have been done. I mean, it's easy to say this now.
In hindsight, yeah.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
retrospect,
but
yeah.
those could have been done earlier up. But I guess they didn't expect this type of slow response. As you said, Andre, yes, initially everybody rushed to get these vaccines initially, and then there was this
And a flat.
Latin, yeah. And
Yeah.
then when the Pfizer came, and everybody started going for the Pfizer. As you know, Bonnet,
So
Pfizer makes Viagra,
It
and
does.
the men realized that. but
But they thought someone's in there.
no, but it's a reputable country, but a company.
it's reputable.
But
Amazingly,
AstraZeneca makes a lot of blood pressure tablets,
That's true.
Nexium for the stomach, and a whole lot of products too. But
Exactly.
people rush for the Pfizer.
Because of the travel. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, Vonette. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing today.
Oh,
The restrictions in terms of the Sinopharm, they say certain countries are not accepting the Sinopharm, so they rush for the Pfizer. But
Oh, right.
amazingly, I saw something the other day. They said there was no hesitancy when Pfizer made Viagra.
No.
So why is there hesitancy with Pfizer vaccine now?
exactly. And my thing is that, and I've used this argument um with one or two people who I care about that I will actually deign to go into a discussion about in terms of the vaccine. Right? My thing was is that look, at the end of the day, we take a lot of stuff that we don't know what the side effects are. We don't know. It's only years later. Like I could say from a personal experience, there was a certain pharmaceutical drug that I was taking. I was having some side effects. My doctor didn't know about it, obviously, because well, the doctor would have prescribed it for me, but wouldn't have known about the side effects. When I started getting these side effects, I started googling it, and it's only when I googled it I realized, wait a minute, this drug was recalled in several other countries around the world, including
Okay.
Australia, because of blood clots, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and this is a drug that is regularly prescribed, right? So the thing is that look, we take a lot of things, we don't know how our bodies will react to them, and we take it because we just take it because we're told to take it. I'm not saying that, and as I say all the time, I respect anyone's personal choice. I
Yeah.
understand that, but then at the end of the day, you have to sit down and ask yourself, how is this going to benefit me? How is this going to benefit the society? And for instance, I mentioned this to Philip before the production and whatnot. I have someone close to me who has high blood pressure, who is an amputee, who is diabetic and refuses to take the vaccine. I
And the
just
reason
cannot,
given is what? But what's the
because
reason?
they're scared. They're scared.
Yeah.
They're saying, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what this is about." Every 5 minutes, they're getting WhatsApp things about this body die of blood clots from the vaccine, and it's not even proven, and all these sorts of things. So I think that sometimes people are allowing what they see on social media to negate what is in their best interest, because as I said, if I were that person, I had all those comorbidities, I would be first in line to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
But
But it
fear
feels
is a. Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
no. Just gonna say, it seems as though there's a real problem of trust. Trust in authorities and professionals and governments and so on. So I'm wondering, is this unearthing a sort of distrust that was under the surface in the Caribbean, or has this been sort of stirred up and created and initiated as a result of COVID? Which of those do you think it is?
The thing is, I don't know, because that's why I said, I mean, you guys probably thought I was being tongue in cheek when I said it, but I think in a way it's kind of in vogue to be against the vaccine for some people. I'm not negating those who have their legitimate health concerns or their religious reasons, but I think for some people, especially given some of the discussions that you happen to overhear and whatnot, it's like everybody else against the vaccine, so I gotta be against it too. Because when you ask them, so why are you against it? They're like, oh, but they make that thing so fast, and all these things that
It
you know.
only had
I like,
emergency approval,
yeah,
not proper approval.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
That
yeah.
just
kind of stuff.
regurgitation of talking points all the time, right?
Would we have
It's a bit tribal.
would we have really wanted them to take 10 years to get a vaccine approved for COVID? Would we have really
Wow.
wanted them? Because that's something they say. They make the vaccine too, that vaccine come too fast, so be approved. Would we have really wanted them to go through the normal process? How many of us would have survived that?
True. Good point.
How many of us would have survived that? Would we really have wanted them to take the time and make it?
But
I'm
there's
sure.
lots of arguments out there, Dr. Lord, as well, for the natural immunity to happen over time. Could you see a case where that would happen, or would a case where we still lose quite a lot more people in the process of that happening?
Yeah, very good point. We will lose a lot more people. The natural immunity is where you get where you get the virus and you develop your immune system develops your own antibodies to this virus. So therefore, you're able to fight off the virus. That's natural immunity. However, this wicked, crooked, snuggy, this virus, COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, is not like that. There are variants that come into the picture and mess up things. There are you can be asymptomatic and develop long COVID down the line. So although you may have had COVID-19 and had not and didn't have any serious problems at the time, 3 months, 6 months down the line, then the arthritis, the skin problems, the kidney problems, the heart problems, the brain fog can occur. And you have no idea of where that came from. So you may have the natural immunity, but still have symptoms. Also, there's no way for you to tell, even if you had no underlying medical condition,
True.
that you will not die from COVID-19 if you get it. So we do not know. At first we used to say, the older people, the obese, the hypertensive, the diabetics, the comorbidities. If you have that, you have a risk of a worse outcome. Look at the statistics now in Barbados and throughout the Caribbean. The number of persons under the age of 18 who are coming down with COVID-19 and who are coming down with
the
severe
symptoms.
disease, with symptomatic COVID-19, more than half of them. That is because of the variants. We had the Alpha variant, which was rampant around here early in the year, and now the Delta variant. And now we hear that in St. Vincent, Jamaica, and Mu.
The Mu.
Mu is there. The Mu variant.
Yeah, and that's just gone on the list here as being a variant of concern. They have certain levels. So that's the first one that they say they're watching. After that is the level where it's active and go like, hang on, we need to do something about this. So it's one that they're kind of just watching at the moment.
So we cannot wait on that natural immunity at all.
So I mean, I guess from the perspective of, because I know I went through this with, I also took the vaccine as well. But then when the question came to me, when it's time for your children to take the vaccine, will you consent to them? Suddenly, thinking that I had somebody else's life in my hands, it started to change me a little bit. And when you look at the statistics and you say, well, it's 1 in 3.5 million likelihood of people dying from the vaccine, right? You still ask the question, that's 1 in 3.5 million. Hold on, could that one be me? No, even if you look at it statistically, you still, in your mind, there's still 100% chance that I could be the one, right? So I do think there is some sort of rationale and stuff that's going through people's minds logically that's bringing them to that conclusion. And I do think there's a dial of trust that has to be there for people who maybe have developed a better relationship with healthcare and so on. Maybe there's a better level of trust for people who have not. I think that's one perspective. I think the other perspective has to do with that relationship between authority and society as well. I do think this is people not being against a vaccine, but trying to be against government.
Yeah.
Almost trying to show that you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're trying to pull one over on me. I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
I think that seems to be what the battle is.
I think we have a lot of that going on here as well too.
I was gonna ask you about that, Vonette, because
Yeah,
I
think
look.
a lot of it is just people exercising what they believe is their right, and saying, you know what, you can't tell me to take no vaccine.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them really don't have a reason why they shouldn't, but they use this as an opportunity to say, well, let me make a statement. I mean, it is what it is.
But a lot of it as well really exposes, coming back to Philip's point about trust and what's not. Over the last few years, I don't like to call it the Trump effect, but there is something that has happened in the last 5 or 6 years during that time with Brexit and stuff, where people really start to distrust government, distrust the media, distrust as they call it now, big pharma, which is something that the anti folks like to use, and what's not. When politics becomes too personal and get too personal, has it now become hard for an opposition leader to try to say, here's my picture, me getting the vax, go get the vax, when just last week you spent a whole press conference or two telling me what a liar this person is? And what what a crook them is, and you can't trust them, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. So how do we get out of this? I saw an interesting thing in Jamaica, where is it Golden, opposition leader, and he was out and about actually at the centers bringing his constituency people to get vaccinated and what's not. And I was like, you see, no, I think that's the right way to go about it. And he said, you know what? This in politics now.
Yeah.
This is about people's life.
Yeah.
So I doing what I need to do.
think
And I was like, I have not seen that from any other opposition leader yet across the region. Now, you see pictures. I see a few pictures. You see the odd Facebook posts go up or Instagram saying, for our safety, do this. And then another paragraph about what the government getting wrong and stuff. And you go like, that's the wrong way to do it. So how do we get now people to see past this tribal warfare, as it were, where politics is concerned, and do what is right?
Yeah, that's a brilliant thing, Andre. That brilliant thing. And you know what? I always say that for me, an opposition will get so much more points
I think so.
if they do that. I think you get so, because then it says that you're able to see the bigger picture. You're able to see past party and government and opposition and think about the public health and the betterment of your people in general. I think that would have given you so much points.
That's what I think, because I think when it's time come to go back to the electorate now during election time, you
People
can
will
say you
remember.
are on the side of the people. You put politics aside for the betterment of people, but we seem unable to do it. And I was surprised to see Golden do it. I was like, oh, I didn't expect that from you. But I was like, this is what you need to see, not just a picture on Instagram and this and that. Get out there and take your people to the thing and say,
on the other-
I support the government in this venture.
Totally.
On the other hand, if this is tribalism, people will say you're a sellout, right? You went and joined with the others, whereas we over here, we're supporting you. You don't really listen to your people.
But you know what?
I think it'd be
I think that would happen because we have some instances where you have the opposition doing just what the opposition thinks they're supposed to do, oppose everything. But I think if initially in the response to this pandemic, we decided initially, we didn't take time to pull from what was happening, what was being built. And if initially we said, you know what, this is a global pandemic, let's join forces and fight this, I think we would have had a different approach as against you fighting against, and then somewhere midstream you come and say, okay, let me go, and then they will call you a sellout. But if initially when you say, okay, this is a pandemic, let's face this as a unified, oh gosh, I don't know if that word could exist at all.
I don't know. Dr. Laurie, we had an interesting question. We can come back to that. But we had an interesting question from Chesterfield, who asked, why so many variants in 18 months?
Yeah, this virus is unique. Viruses normally mutate, huh? But this virus was almost like a perfect virus. It's invisible, it's going all over the place, and then it's changing rapidly. There are 4 variants of concern. You mentioned that the mu is now variant of concern, but there have been several other variants of interest. The lambda, for instance, which is in South America. So how viruses survive is that they need living tissue. So if we don't have our soldiers at the front gate to fight off the virus, if we're not wearing our mask, if we're not washing our hands, if we're not keeping our distancing and using the additional level of vaccination, then we don't have those antibodies built up to fight off this virus if it comes into your system. What viruses do then, they change their particles. And what's happening with this virus is that the spike protein, which is that area on the outside, has been changing, mutating. As it multiplies, it doesn't multiply perfectly, and therefore
Mm-hmm.
pieces drop off or pieces add on and so on. And that's where the variants are. So all of the variants are not variants of concern, are not variants that would be worse than the previous variant. Some variants die
Or
off quickly
weaker.
and disappear.
Mm-hmm.
But the variants that we have had have been 2 to 4 times more transmissible, and this one uh, is, like 100 times more transmissible than previous other variants. So
Mm-hmm.
they mutate, they multiply, and when they multiply, as when we go forth and multiply, we don't give identical twins every time. They are different, and therefore
Yeah.
some may be more virulent, more
Yeah.
active than
Mm-hmm.
others, and some may be
Mm-hmm.
more passive and more might die off quickly. And
Right.
that's what happens in this situation with
So
the
interesting word you use here. You said this is like the perfect virus. Hmm.
perfect storm. Yes.
But when you hear words like perfect virus, you start to think, hold on, is there a little bit of engineering and design happening here?
Oh, where you come up
Well.
with that? Where you come up with that, Philip?
Dr. Lard said
Well.
it, and when I hear perfect, I say, "Ooh, what's
Well,
happening?"
I don't know. I really don't go there. I look at the fact that it's here, and we gotta deal with it.
Yeah, you
How
gotta
it
deal
got
with it.
Okay,
here
okay.
is not my worry. But
Indeed.
going back to something that Bonnet said earlier about the politicians and so on, what about the entertainers in Trinidad and throughout the Caribbean? Um, have they been used to encourage persons or to say what they feel about vaccinations? I see Oliver Samuel. I saw a piece on Oliver Samuel that you may have seen. He has
Mm-hmm.
done a piece, but we're using the public figures. We're not using the doctors that much. I see in Barbados, we're using a nurse, and we have some school children. Um, but we need to use people that the young people, because I find that a lot of the hesitancy now is amongst the young persons. Although I had an 85-year-old lady this last week who said she's not taking it because she has arthritis in her knee. I couldn't understand the connection between the arthritis and not taking the vaccine.
Mm.
But are the entertainers or are the other persons being used throughout the Caribbean to help to spread the message?
Dr. Lord, and you said that you were talking about the campaign
Yes,
before, that communication campaign, and
communication.
what they should have done, or how more proactive they should have been. And you're absolutely correct. I'm saying in 2021, where we have this what we call influencers, as much as we may not, I mean, traditional thinkers may not want to give credence to the power that entertainers and artists and influencers hold, you cannot discount it.
Dismiss them. Mm-hmm.
You absolutely cannot discount it. And you are absolutely correct in saying that they could have used a lot more public and more entertainers too, because these are the people that resonate with the, you see, those from between 19 and 35 or some kind of, these are, they want to hear Marshall Montano come and say, hey, come and sing, go on, let me go and get the job, you know. Now, we may not want to, we may not want to say it for what it is, but that's what it is. That's why they're called influencers, because they come out with a product and people rush to buy it simply because of who uses it. And we have to use these opportunities to capitalize on that. That's what we should have been doing. These people should have been at the forefront of the Get Vax campaign. You're absolutely correct. A lot more could have been done with those. A lot more could have been done.
I just want
But
to jump in here. Oh,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead, Alicia. You go ahead.
No, I just wanted to agree with both points. Because I mean, even looking at the I think there was some talk about getting Vibes Cartel, although there are some issues with that. In Jamaica, with regard to being the face of the vaccine campaign there. I mean, of course, there's some concern whether he would be the correct person, but I do know that there has been some consideration given. But I completely agree that using these influencers it will achieve several things. One, because, and I think Philip touched on it, the fact that there seems to be some disconnect between citizenry and the trust in formal political institutions and in politicians. And maybe if you use influencers who are people that, generally speaking, persons look up to, younger people, etc., and they would be considered neutral people, so to speak, in this
Exactly.
fight. People will
Exactly.
more listen to them. But then also, I think in terms of revenue, because I mean, even if they don't pay you your full fee, at least you will be getting some revenue coming in. I would think if they use you as the face of, if they pay you to write a jingle, or they pay you to record a public service ad, and I'm sure you would do a better job at it than some of the public service ads that we have, unfortunately, which are not always, not always the most effective, I think. Right?
The fact is also the entertainers have a lot at stake here as well. So I don't see very many of them not wanting to be part of the campaign, because this campaign, because our ability to earn is totally dependent on the response of this campaign. So we definitely wanted to get back to
Yeah.
that. We would have definitely, I think most of us would have jumped on, because we wanted to
So-
get back to some
But
state of we could live.
I do think both sides have that in common. Whether people are anti-vax or pro-vax, both sides want to get back to normal, or let's call it post-normal. Some way that we're open. People who are anti-vax are thinking, just stop all this now. Levy, I would say a majority of people who are just saying, let's just go for it, right? Because you'd see a lot of people who are anti-vax tend to also be anti-mask wearing as well. There's that overlap. Not all of them, but you do see that overlap. So I do think if we could grab onto what is common in these camps and maybe build the messaging around that commonality, maybe there's something we could create there.
No, I agree. I agree with that. Looking for, oh, even before we look forward, actually realize. So Mark is watching. I know some people might be asking, where is Mark?
Oh, yes.
This weekend, Mark is actually taking his son up to university. So he is starting first year at Huddersfield, Kyle. So the family's all gone up, and Mark is up there. I'm sure being a proud dad and proud parents, all in all, as he's going up there to do his first year, in music and stuff like that. So that's where Mark is at the moment. Was to say that at the very beginning.
Kyle probably there. All it know. Y'all ain't gone home yet?
Why didn't I go home? But it's good. But he's there. We talk all the time, and he's having a good time there and enjoying, I guess, starting that new journey of university. Looking forward, Vonna, you've had to morph in different ways over time, and I've been watching a lot of creative, and some people are going, I tired morph now. I don't want to get back to whatever it was before, or get out there and do some stuff.
Vaughn, you can feel free to correct Andre's Trinidad accent. I'm pretty sure there's nobody in Trinidad that said
that was mixed up all kind of Caribbean. That was everything. That was
He's correct, because somebody said that, Bernard, you may have to look at doing something else, and I say, oh God, I tired.
yeah, people are, and I see that across the board. A lot of artists, whether it be musicians or visual artists or people who do different things, are saying, you know what, I thought this was going to be for a period of time, and then we would go back to my real thing. How do you feel about that? Are you getting to that point of frustration? And then what do you think going forward is going to look like for you, and any suggestions for other artists as well?
I'll be really honest. Now, I'm a health and safety professional. That's what I did before Petrotrip was closed down, and then I went into my music. But when I got into the music, the intent was to do this for the rest of my life full time. I really didn't intend to go back to work for anybody. I really didn't intend to. I said, I'm going to be doing my thing. I call myself a creative entrepreneur. I'll be doing my own events and whatnot, and then of course. So now, I have had for the past 18 months to do things that, and to look at it from a different perspective. So we started off with the doing the online things and kind of staying connected to my audience, making sure I do these lives on a Friday night.
Were you able to monetize at all?
Not a couple of the online performances, yes, but as I tell people, I'm very honest in saying, initially, when we started off with the online concerts, people would pay, and then you saw it gradually, because of course, some of these same persons, their ability to pay
It's
True.
dwindling as well.
because they're also affected by this pandemic. So we keep saying, do put out this online content and people would pay. But I've seen it where the income that people would have been earning from online performances it has gone down, and for various reasons. I mean, I might put for the first 3 months, I ain't gonna put for the next. You understand? But I've had to kind of redefine my entire brand. And I mean, when we could have afforded to have a couple people do a couple smaller things other than the big events, and it's taken a lot to try to remain relevant and sane and to maintain some level, because it's not easy to have absolutely no income when the bills have not taken a sabbatical. You understand? It's bills are coming, and you have to find. So you have to keep trying to find ways, and it's extremely, extremely tiring. So I'll be very honest with you all at this point. I mean, I'm looking at options of maybe just going back into consulting for the health and safety. It's not my first preference. It isn't. But I have to live, and I'm just not based on how we're going right now with the vaccination rates. I'm not seeing it changing for us creatives in the immediate future. I'm not. Yeah.
And in Barbados as well, Alicia, I know Prime Minister Motley talk about lives and livelihoods. And livelihoods is taking a huge focus now in terms of, people's ability to earn, as Juanette was saying. How is that being dealt with in Barbados, and how are you finding people are feeling? I know in your area of international trade as well, perhaps you can want to bring in something on, as a whole, the region, how that's going to be impacted.
Sure. I mean, the fact of the matter is that I know things are hard for a lot of people. I mean, I see it on several levels. I mean, I'm involved in a charity here, for instance, it's an international service club. I won't promote it, but you see the amount of people who are coming asking for assistance, in terms of hampers, in terms of needing to get things for their kids, those sorts of things. So you're definitely seeing that. As have mentioned, in terms of students, because I lecture, I definitely could see how it is affecting them, because you have to take into account too that even before COVID, people came to COVID with, some had issues going on in their lives, whether it's familial issues, other personal issues, mental health issues. And when you're a lecturer, you could tend, generally speaking, you could tend to pick up on some of those things and reach out when you see that a student is struggling, or is not really absorbing the material. You can reach out. But if you're on an online setting, it's a lot harder. Even if they have the cameras on, it's a lot harder for you to pick up where the student is struggling, but you could tell that some of them are struggling. Then, of course, in terms of the macro economy, we do know, yes, Barbados had, in fact, Barbados was one of several Caribbean countries that had significant contractions in GDP last year. The only country that saw growth was Guyana, for obvious reasons.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
Wonder why.
I mean, yeah, we wonder why, right? So, yeah, I mean,
That's another topic we gotta come back to.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
interesting.
And the truth of the matter is that at this time, it really makes you ask yourself, okay, so Barbados came to COVID in a weakened state because of, yes, we had we have the BERT program. We were starting to see improvements there and whatnot, but the level of fiscal space that, say, some other countries would have had, Barbados didn't have. So the amount of, so when you look at what's happening in, say, like the US or the UK, where they could provide certain levels of stimulus to assist their populations, I mean, we do that, but we cannot do that to the extent that they're able to do it. And Bajans, as we know, tend to have a lot of pride. So most people would be
And
struggling
industry.
at, true. But when I say pride, I mean, very true. But I
No.
mean,
Yeah, I know
a
what you're
lot
saying
of,
to me.
yeah, a lot of people who are suffering are not going to
Not
necessarily be
saying.
the first, exactly, be the
Yeah.
first ones in
Not gonna
line
come
to
out and
reach
say
out
it.
for help. So
Yeah.
my thing is that, just to conclude, my thing is that, it's one thing to look at the numbers, look at unemployment numbers and those sort of things, but those things do not tell the true picture, and there is a lot of suffering out there. And the truth is, as Vonette said, you really don't know when it's going to end.
Yeah.
You don't know when it's going to end.
Yeah, I think the uncertainty is definitely the thing that right now is probably getting to me a little bit, because
Yeah.
it's just as we said at the beginning, we thought initially, 3 months, because that's when we went into lockdown here in the UK. That's what we were talking about. Yeah, 3 months and then back to normal. Then we went, oh, okay, things should be back to normal by the summer. By the time we got in it, okay. And then we went, okay, certainly by Christmas, we're going to be in it and we're going to start 2021. We'll be fine. I mean, and we're now here in September and we still have elements of stuff. I mean, the UK is definitely one that is saying, I think Boris is kind of gone, we done with this. So so let me get out there and do what we gotta do. It feels like he's saying, listen, we had the jab here for the longest while. So many people have taken it. It's only anecdotal people who have taken the vaccine and had issues, but those are the ones that get highlighted so much on the internet for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I think he's to the point of, no, we've done everything we can.
Now, I'm wondering
No.
if that's actually part of the reason for distrust, because quite early up, most governments were saying this is only 3 weeks, a couple of weeks that we'll have this, and then they said, we have to get through winter up here in the UK. Then they said, well, by summer, we had a Freedom Day, was June 21st, that sort of stuff, and yeah, it's still with us. Do you think because governments feel as though they're forced to make optimistic, positive promises that then crumble when we reach to those speculative dates, that's part of the reason that's creating this cycle of distrust?
I mean, we're dealing with a virus. This is unprecedented as far as I'm concerned. I don't think anybody could predict exactly what would have happened. Or when it would have been gone. I mean, and at the end of the day, you had to give people some kind of hope. But they did say that, I mean, when you're dealing with a pandemic that you really don't have information.
You don't know.
This is new. So, I mean, they could only make so many promises. At the end of the day, they don't know exactly what's going to happen either, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's why there has been some distrust, because it was difficult to predict what was going to happen, and things were changing as we went along, and people then said, well, he said that's yesterday, and now look what he's saying today.
That exactly, yeah.
I wonder if Boris has decided that I'm going to do an experiment. Let's everybody enjoy themselves and see what happens.
He came very close to saying that, to be honest.
He was very close to saying that. Exactly, you're right.
And then the world will look at it and say, well, they did it and it worked, or they did it and didn't work, so therefore we'll go this way or that way. Because there's no other answer right now.
Now.
Except the vaccines, of course.
Yeah.
But I think it is that has led to some of the distrust, and therefore the conspiracy theorists have been able to
become more relevant.
Yeah.
They found their niche.
But I think it's going to get to a point, guys, where because I mean, like, we have certain restrictions. So we have our curfew from 9 to 5, and we've recently started kind of opening back up. So we have and our prime minister has said that if this trend continues, he will consider reopening restaurants and because then if, let's say, it plateaus and everybody else that's unvaccinated now decides to remain unvaccinated, how long can we stay this way for?
That's a very good point.
How long?
That's a very good point, because we're seeing different brands of vaccine come down. People seem to be, for me, across the region, when we see Pfizer come now, where people have gone, okay, yes, I'll take that one. But let's see how that goes and how that plateaus. Because then again, how long do we continue in this cycle if you're still dealing with a resistant society? And if livelihoods then become the focus, then you've got to get the economies out there back and working. And just hope, I don't know, but just hope that the healthcare system can deal with potentially what's going to come.
Yeah, I think eventually that's what will happen.
Alicia, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that we also, because I mean, we spoke a little bit about like the economic impacts and stuff, but for me, the social impacts are the ones that really, I think, are going to be really pervasive for a long time. As I said, the fact that children aren't able to socialize the way that they would like, the somebody raised it in the chat. I thought it was a very good point because I had heard there was some study done which talked about the fact that you have children in homes that are being abused. There's no assistance for them. You're seeing a rise in suicides. I mean, like every few days here, you hear about somebody taking their life, whether it's reported in the media or you might hear it through the grapevine. So there's a lot of pressure on people, and I think that, and we're talking about the ordinary citizens, but we got to think about our leaders as well and our frontline workers. These people have not had a break at
Yes.
Exactly.
all.
For nearly two
These people
years.
Okay.
for nearly 2 years, and I mean, I could not fathom going that long without being able to detach. Because even if the prime minister takes a break, I'm sure she's still, I mean, I don't know her,
Not
but
really a
from
break.
what
It's,
exactly, I'm sure from what I've heard of her personality, she's still in tune with what's going on, whatnot. So I mean, we have to think about these things as well. The impact that it's having on our leaders, the impact that it's having on our frontline workers, and as I said, on our children as well. I don't have kids, but I could, as I said, I teach adults, and if the adults have their issues as well in terms of online learning, I could only imagine how the kids are.
yeah, the societies of it is interesting because prior to COVID, you turn on any study or you look at any study, they would say, oh, we're becoming more recluse. Oh, because we've got the phones and iPads and what's not, we're not really talking to people as much and that kind of thing. It's almost as if they're saying that's the direction we were going in and that's how it's going to be. People are just going to not need people and talk to people. And clearly that's not true. Clearly that's not true, given everything that we're seeing now, especially with the kids. As I was saying earlier, before people would say, oh, just give the kids a tablet and a phone and they're happy, they'll be fine, and they don't need anything else. That's not true. I mean, I see that in my own daughters. That's not true. They might say so, but you see the difference in how they lit up when my girls went back to school. They didn't want to say it, but they were like, oh, I actually did miss everybody.
Yes.
And now they don't
Yeah.
want to go back. They don't want to go back home. It's like, no, we're not doing that again.
That's not real
Because
joy.
they now realize what they miss.
Yeah, no, you're so right. And the thing is that I consider myself to be an introvert. I mean, I have friends and whatnot, but I consider myself personally to be an
Introverts have
introvert. Like
friends, Alicia.
it's no, it's true. But
It's fine.
like I'm not one of those people. I have to be up under somebody 24/7, or I have to be at this fat or nothing. So that's just not me. But even me myself, there's some days that I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm tired of staring at these four walls. I need to get some sort of interaction, some sort of human interaction, right? I'm tired of staring at my screen. So it's those sorts of things that you have to think about. What are going to be the long term effects of these things on people? I mean, then don't even talk about crime. Not only just in terms of the fact that people
Yeah, I was
cannot
going to
make
ask
a
that. Yeah.
living, but also in terms of the fact that some people might just lose it,
Yeah.
mentally. So I this is going to be one of those challenges. I really do not envy our leaders
You're
because
correct.
these are lots of things that they're grappling with at once. Because we talk about this disease, this pandemic, mainly from a public health perspective, but it is so pervasive in almost every single sphere: economic, social, you name it. Every single
Yeah.
sphere is affected by this pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the
Angela made a
economic,
point. Oh, go on, Dr. Lloyd.
yeah, from the economic side of things, I think the Minister of Health yesterday in Trinidad said that they spent 64 million, sorry, 70 million US dollars
Yeah.
in Trinidad.
Yeah.
480 TT, I mean,
450 million.
480 TT, right? Million, 480 million TT dollars.
Yeah.
Last week in the House of Assembly here, we went for a additional 46 million Barbados dollars. It's 23
US.
US, 23 million US dollars. The effects on the cost for the facilities, the cost for the infrastructure, This
Yeah,
cost for
the
drugs,
tests and what's not.
transportation, the testing. I mean,
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
done 275,000 plus tests in Barbados at a cost of $200 per test
Per test.
alone.
Yeah.
And we want to do more tests and not talk about the drugs and oh, it's I don't know how or when we're going to get back from this because we don't have an end in sight right now, and
Yeah.
$10 million alone in vaccines, and it just going on and on and on. And for the Minister of Health and the Prime Minister, as Alicia said, it must be very stressful. The Chief Medical Officer, um, they haven't really been taking any breaks. They've just been going, 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 and things piling up on top of one another all the time, and it got to be stressful for them. On the other hand, the children, as I mentioned, I fear what they will become because of lack of the socialization that we all had. Um, from a family physician point of view, I'm worried about the effects on people's health. Um, Inability. Now, the gyms are essentially closed except for you could do outside training and so on, or you can't do
Boot camp.
aerobic training inside the gyms of itself, dance exercise and so on. From the hiking that people do on weekends, that has also been shut down. And by the way, we are shutting down at 6 o'clock this evening. So
Oh.
our curfew will start at 6 p.m. from this evening, but 9 o'clock, I think, during the week. So, the lack of social interaction is going to be a big problem on people's health and people's
Yeah.
minds in the long term. And I fear what our society will become post COVID
Yeah.
19.
I've been doing a series, and I'm sure you would have seen, Andre, the series of lives that I do on a Friday
Fridays.
night.
Tune
And
by tune.
yeah, tune boy tune, and it's just simply sitting in front of my screen and just coming up with some theme and just singing and just playing some music and sharing some energy. Now, contrary to what I would have thought, it's almost like I feel people's energy through the screen. And since I started that, I've had so many persons comment to me about how therapeutic and how it's just like sitting and exhaling, and it's something that they absolutely needed. And to be honest, Andre, I'm as much as it may be helping them, it's also helping me.
Helping you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because we really are dealing with something that we had absolutely we just don't know how to deal with, and
No.
we just have to find pockets of and moments or create moments of just trying to reach one another, boy, just trying to reach people and to try to make it a little easier for each other, because it's a difficult time.
Do you think people are understanding the stress that our leaders are under, or people still just staying in their tribe, so to speak, and pelting over the paling, as it were, and hitting them? Do people understand it? People get it?
I don't think
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't think so. All well and good. They're being paid, and that's their responsibility, and we know that's their responsibility. But I'm telling you, I would not. I would not want to be in their position at all. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Alicia.
No, I was just going to say, me, if you judge from the calling programs, no. I mean, you still hear the same partisan stuff all the time. I mean, I'm sure that there are some people who appreciate what our leaders, I mean, we do. We appreciate what our leaders are going through right now. But I think that some people are just, I think part of it is because people are suffering. And when they're suffering, it's easier to focus on
On
themselves
yourself.
than people that they think, oh well, we paying their salaries and that sort of thing, but they don't realize that there are people too. There are people that have not had a break. There are people that have some weighty decisions to make. I mean, I'll be honest, I would not want to be in that position right now, because you're trying to turn around economy that has been languishing for several years. I mean, even prior to COVID, then you have this crisis, and then on top of that, you had the ashfall, you had Hurricane Elsa. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
what is the probability
and the
of,
flooding,
yes, and the
because
flooding of
right
all
across
of
the
these
region is being
things?
flooding. Yeah.
Exactly. What's the probability of all of these things happening at the same time to one little island, one little region, So these are things that we have to think about. And, you know, and on top of this, they still have to think of the post recovery, because I mean, we're talking about the now, but then there's the post
Exactly.
recovery they have to think about in terms of the economy, in terms of the society, and what have you. So, yeah,
I saw
I don't know what
Grenada.
to be them.
I saw Grenada's ethics committee has been
Yes.
making the rounds. I mean, I think around the world, such committees have come because of this during this time with COVID. But I think this is the first one in the Caribbean that I've seen overtly lay out.
Yep.
This is why this committee needs to come about, and here are the decisions that we're going to be making. What's your reactions to that when you saw that? It kind of, for me personally, I mean, it was real before, but that made it really real.
Same thing. Same thing.
That made it really real for me. Of wow, the decisions that these folks got to make.
I mean, we've been we I guess we didn't have to get to that point because our parallel healthcare system really worked for us. The fact that we had space or these hospitals that were not occupied, that we could have actually designed specifically to deal with the pandemic and persons who are coming in with COVID. So it didn't, the burden that would have been expected on the normal healthcare system didn't happen because of the parallel healthcare system. But when I heard that, man, it messed with my head. I'm telling you, it really did mess with my head. It really messed with my head.
Is something like that in Barbados, Dr. Lloyd? Do you
I-
know,
I-
or is there plans?
I'm not aware. I'm not aware at all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. I mean, because we're here in Europe, I mean, Italy was going through what they were going through, which was kind of next level, to be honest with you. When they were the first country to
Yeah.
be hit so hard, especially in the northern regions and what's not. I think they had a similar thing at their hospitals. They had to decide who was going to go on a
should live.
ventilator versus who you just got to just leave, because the chances of this person versus this person, we got to make some hard decisions here. But this is the first time I'm seeing it in the Caribbean, and that's what really bring it home. Like, whoa,
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a difficult
home
decision.
in some serious trouble.
It's a difficult decision to make. We hope that we don't need to go there.
Get there.
But the hospital does have, that policy in place, generally not to do with COVID-19. I suspect, it thought they may have been thinking about it, but it is,
Should they have said it publicly, or should they have kept it, or should they have come up with it? What do you think?
they need to come up with it. I think they need to come up with it. But probably they would not publicize it at this time. I don't think they would. And as Katie said, it's happening in the US, yeah, definitely. And in Central America and South America, those decisions have had to be made. As someone goes on the ventilator, if somebody dies, it is, that is the situation is that we see ourselves.
Yeah. Definitely. When I saw that, it kind of just brought it home where the region is at.
Yeah.
Because I think initially we were dealing with it pretty good. I know Trinidad had the issues regarding Venezuela and what's not as well. And I think that's the surprise that folks see with Trinidad as well, of how the resurgence in Trinidad, considering the stuff that was put in place at the very, very beginning. Because initially you had probably some of the more, I want to use this word because it's a word that we use here, but more draconian things in place compared to the rest of the region. I mean, in Trinidad, how are people feeling about that? People still, people on board, people thinking it was a waste of time what they went through last year. Is that playing into it? You did all this you sacrificed and now still this, or?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, Andre, you'll always have the vocal ones and the ones who seem to be the voice of, and they wouldn't be happy with anything that was done. But I think generally, and I'm speaking from my perspective and from a lot of the people that I interface with, I think we are pretty satisfied with the job that our leaders would have done and the decisions that they would have made and how proactive they were initially in putting things in place. I think we're generally satisfied. And for those of you who disagree with me, well, Andrew will have to call Oli on this program. But for me, I'm thinking from my perspective, I think that I'm generally I trust that they made the best decisions, even though we're in this position now. I still have that feeling, yeah.
If I could jump in here,
Yeah, go on,
guys,
Alicia.
I think because the point about trust and government keeps reverberating in my mind because I think one of the things that people are concerned about is the fact that some people are saying, look, we don't feel as though the government is doing enough because they're trying to cater to tourism or they're trying to cater to the business class or whatnot. And certainly that was the sentiment you were seeing a lot, particularly towards the end of last year when and people were saying and I don't want to misrepresent anybody's position, but certainly some of the medical community, from what you were saying, we're saying, look, we need to strengthen our protocols, our travel protocols, especially when Alpha was really, dominating things. And then you saw it now when Delta started going throughout the region. You ask yourself, okay, why is the government not moving with a little more alacrity? And one of the reasons why, obviously, is because of the need to balance
The
health
balance.
with the balance between health and business and livelihoods and that sort of thing. But you ask yourself, is it that more could have been done? Certainly those of us who were reading the tea leaves, so to speak, were like, all right, if Delta is causing this much trouble in some of our main source markets or in some of the other countries across the region, maybe we should be doing a bit more to protect ourselves. But it all comes down to the fact that we're a small open economy and there's only so much we can do in terms of closing our borders or limiting travel, that sort of thing. But I think that's part of the reason why there tends to be some disconnect between the citizenry and government, because some feel as though the government is making decisions in favor of the economy as opposed to public health.
Public
Public
health.
health. That was an interesting perspective. Now, I was thinking a lot of that same challenge of distrust between politicians and governments and so on, and it reminded me of this framework called the 5 levels of tribal leadership, or the 5 stages of the tribe. Where the bottom level of tribe, the lowest level of tribe, is the one where people have alienated themselves from society and look at society and say, society is bad. Society has down to the bottom, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to survive. So that's the lowest level of tribe. And what becomes dangerous is when those people and those voices and personalities start to link up with each other. They all just talk about society and government and so on as though they're really bad. The next level up is misery. When you have a bunch of people just walking around together, my life sucks. It's so dreadful. Oh, I have all these aches and pains. Things so bad. I have nothing. And they start to form their own tribe, but they have a different set of conversations and a different dynamic. Then the next level up is the, what? I'm pretty good. Is a bunch of people who just look at themselves and think, I'm actually pretty good. And they want to tell everybody about how good they are. Right. So they start to flock with a bunch of people who just talk and share stories about what they've achieved and what they've overcome, and so on. Then there's another level up, which is the we are great, which is sort of silos and cliques of people who share opinions and who share achievements, and they believe they're a great group, but they're exclusive. And then the final level up is the level you actually want to get a society to, is where people are outward looking and see hope and possibility, and society and government is great. But if a government is not adjusting how it engages with society, they've not done a proper pulse assessment of society, they could be speaking with a language that only fits,
A certain
one of
segment.
those tribes.
Exactly.
And that tribe at the bottom is just everything they said is just shaking their head. No, no, no. And so it's important to try to spread your messaging across those different tribes and know how to engage with them, how to
Each
identify
tribe.
who are the personalities and leaders of each of those particular tribes as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big challenge that we're having. But we're hearing a lot of bottom level tribal
Yeah.
behavior happening
Yeah.
at the moment.
Their voices seem to be the loudest, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but it's also too of all the tribes aren't just getting the message from the government. They're getting it, especially today, they're getting it from a myriad of different places. And which came back to something Dr. Lloyd was saying earlier, and why it was imperative on us to get out there with our message. And
Message.
by our message, I mean our Caribbean message to suit our people's way how we think, as opposed to, assuming that everyone is going to go on the internet and find the right and trusted place to get information from. I see a lot of people saying, oh, speaking to the quote unquote anti-vaxxers, to me, the message there for those isn't to just put them in a box and just hammer them and all the time. Is no, because within that box of quote unquote anti-vaxxers is a broad brush of people. There are people who are really fearful. There are some people who, as you were saying, Alicia, who aren't taking it for medical reasons, even though in some cases people like Dr. Lord might be saying, no, you're fine. But they get still fear to say, no, 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 I had allergies of something before and I think this is going to cause an issue. So there's a whole bunch of people in there. And that's why you got to get out there and get that message being consistent and try and get ahead of it. And all the town halls that are happening right across the region now, I know some people might be saying that they're a bit too late, but they just got to keep happening. You got to keep telling them and telling them and telling them and telling them again.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just putting them over there and saying, hey, we're going to get on with our lives. But
Yeah.
you guys, I saw some people on the internet saying, well, just don't treat the people who refuse to take the vaccine if they fall sick. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
How we get there?
We can't get to that tour. We can't get to
And
that
like,
tour.
I'm like, how we get there ready to say just leave them and let them die or something? But again, as Dr. Law was saying, the nature of this particular virus is not even that simple. Because
Yeah.
even here in the UK, they're talking, no, everyone needs a booster and we need to set regular boosters. This might be like the flu where you're taking vaccines every year to things. So you can't even bring that thinking into it either.
Yeah.
There-
And
there-
I think a lot of them could be reached, but just as you say, if we fashion the message a particular kind of way, a lot of them can be reached.
Dr. Lord, you were saying?
there's no playbook
Yeah.
for the governments to follow, for the medical profession to follow. We know what has happened. Let's look at the vaccines. Do you know that your child had 33 vaccines by the time the child was 5? 33?
So much.
And Andre, you didn't question it, but now you think, no, should I give my teenager the Pfizer? But yeah, those vaccines took a little while long to be developed. But this thing here, so cell phone is a computer. You remember the first cell phones?
I do.
Yeah.
Right. As Bonnet said, we can wait the 10 years. Actually, it took 10 years to develop these vaccines. The technology was around, the body was around. We just had put in the engine when we got the genomic sequence earlier this year, or early last year.
Last year.
And then all the studies were done. Hundreds of thousands of persons were in these trials over a period of time with various vaccines. There were 53 different vaccines being manufactured. So far, there are only 6 that have been approved by the World Health Organization, but there are several others out there that are being used in various countries, and they're not experimental. This is a pandemic, and we can't wait. I look at the vaccination rate in various countries in the Caribbean. When we look at Grenada, as of yesterday, they had 20.3% of their population vaccinated. Jamaica had just 10%. Antigua had 40.2%. of their vaccination fully of the population fully vaccinated, and Barbados, according to the John Hopkins University, has
37.
37.6%
Yeah.
fully vaccinated. Trinidad, I don't know if I don't have the actual percentage, but I know that they have had a lot of their persons. Over 33,000 children in Trinidad have been vaccinated already.
Yeah.
First doses. 366 pregnant females. They don't have pregnant males, right?
No, thanks for
Right.
clarifying.
Yeah, yeah. So 366 pregnant
Always a good biology
persons
lesson when Dr. Ford is on. Oh, Lord.
who have been vaccinated. But on the other hand, Trinidad is seeing 4 to 5 deaths per day still. So we have a long way to go, and we need to keep this message up. Make it simple. Don't give up on the anti-vaxxers. It's their choice, but you just encourage them or talk to them. And what I'm doing with my patients are asking them, "Are you having any issues with it?" One guy said it was a needle. A fully grown man. He said he just doesn't like needles, but he's a diabetic and he sticks his finger every day to check his blood
Interesting.
sugar. So
Yeah.
I said, the needle is nothing like that. So sometimes you find excuses, and then when you rationalize it, and then he asked me, so where can I go today to get the vaccines? And there's another point I wanted to bring up: accessibility and communications again. It doesn't, you don't see it in the newspaper, you don't hear it on the radio every day. You have to hear from somebody that, okay, you can go by building number 2 and get it, or maybe by Sharon. But you go there today and they say, oh gosh, they're not there today, they're somewhere else. So now we have the pop-up vaccination centers
Vaccination
here.
centers, yeah.
So two of my patients told me, I said, okay, I'm going to wait to come to my neighborhood. I said, but there are 2 buses, there are 2 to cover the whole island. As far as I know, there may be more. You think they're going to come in fix village tomorrow? No. Get up off your backside and go to the various
Yeah.
wherever it is. And I will go on the Government Information Service website is where you get the information. And therefore, or you got to listen to Major Clark, is his name is, to hear what's going on the next day. But we need to have that part of communication a little better available. Before, it was very difficult to get the vaccines. Well, unless you knew somebody in the polyclinic or a nurse or somebody, because it said it was only for the over 69s and or intensive and diabetics, and then it was only for this class. And I would say, well, you got to sign up, and no, I said just go.
Just
And
go.
so there was a increase in the number of persons who have gone for the vaccines in recent times, although it may be leveling off. But we need to encourage more and more people. We have enough vaccines right now in Barbados to cover whoever wants to get. We're going to get more, I'm sure, but we need to open the gates and let people just come in, but also encourage them, educate them, and let them know what the benefits. I've done a lot of talks to various communities and businesses and so on, just informing them of what's going on, not telling them, please go and do it. The decision is yours.
Yeah.
Just
No,
sorry, go ahead. No,
you
I'm
go.
just
No,
going to agree with what Dr. Lord said, because I mean that was certainly my experience, but because I was all gung ho about it. I wanted to be vaccinated. Nobody had to convince me. I wanted the thing. But initially the process wasn't necessarily the easiest, because I had to wait. Nearly an hour the first time to get the first shot. The second shot was a lot quicker. If I was there 15 minutes, I was there long. But not only that, I found that the communication was the problem, because you would be hearing, okay, it is appointment only, but then you're hearing that some places taking walk-ins, and you're hearing that not through official channels, but like you might be hearing it through your neighborhood WhatsApp chat or those sorts of
WhatsApp.
things, right? And let me just say, I am not a fan of needles either. I can't even tell you when the woman stick me, because I did not feel it at all.
I feel mine though, and I hate
I
needles.
didn't
So I
feel
feel mine.
it.
I
And I
said
do not like needles.
I hold it in. I try to be a big man, but I feel it, and then come out and like ah. So
Oh,
I
no.
felt it. I hate needles.
Well, I have
But
a
you got to do
wonderful
it.
nurse. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but just to agree with Dr. Lord, and I think what they could probably do is, I don't know how feasible it would be, but if they could get the telecommunications companies to send people, like, something on a text or something. Okay, here are the
Location.
Mm.
locations exactly, because I will see them on Twitter because of who I follow on Twitter, but not everybody's on Twitter and not
Not
everybody
everybody's on
follows
Twitter.
who I
No,
follow on
exactly.
Twitter. Exactly. So I
Exactly.
mean, but everybody got one of these. So
Yeah.
try to have some deal with the telecommunications companies or something where you send out a text every morning saying, okay, these are the places where you could go. This is where the mobile unit is going to be. This is where the pop-up testing sites are going to be. And I think maybe that would make things a bit easier.
Yeah, no,
Maybe.
I
I
agree.
follow Alicia on Twitter, but she didn't follow me back.
Really? I follow you. Oh dear. Let me go and rectify that.
But Alicia, while I got you, and I know international trade, and I know you look at this kind of stuff as well. So, one of the a number of questions here. Do you think people have understood now the connection between tourism and the economy, and not just tourism and my job, or tourism? Well, goes all the way through, but you are, or just are, and not just thinking that tourism is just about these people that come here and walk about bareback on the bus and don't want it and that kind of stuff. Do you think people have now understood that connection? I mean, given to reconnect it to the conversation we were having a little bit earlier about trying to find a balance, because it's very easy to think, oh, they just want the tourists. No, no, this isn't about tourists. This is about,
Yeah.
we trying to balance lives and livelihoods. So, and at this point in time, this is what actually keeps us as islands afloat at the moment. So, and then looking forward, have governments themselves finally realized we got to stop just talking diversification and get on and do this thing?
Agreed. I'll start with your second point first, and then go to the first point. The second point with regard to diversification, I think that there has been some movement towards it. So, like with Barbados, the medicinal cannabis, in terms of the renewable energy sector, and these were things in works before COVID. But of course, you're seeing governments move with a lot more alacrity now because they're like, all right, you know what? Tourism just get slap up like nothing at all by this virus. We have to really try to give our economies a bit more of a leg to stand on, because I mean, even if you think about not just looking at the data but also looking at the day to day, and that's with regard to your first point. Everybody from the taxi driver, from the person who sells souvenirs along the beach, little handcraft or whatnot, the jet ski operators, even the creatives like Vonette, who would have been singing in the hotels or on the cruise ships and those sorts of things, have been affected. The
Yep.
persons that Vonette will go to, for whatever service she needs, they themselves will be affected. So, like, you have the persons who are directly involved in tourism, who are affected, and they would immediately see the effect. But then there are people who are indirectly affected because they provide services to the hotels, or they provide services to persons who have a deeper link to the industry. They themselves realize that, you know what, tourism is a very pervasive part of our economy. What I think needs to be done is that I think that we talk about diversification. I am not one of those people who feels that we could just get a riff on tourism just like that. It took a
No, no,
while
no,
for
no.
us to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
evolve out of sugar, because remember, tourism was part of our diversification efforts out of sugar
Yeah.
So
exports,
sugar,
Sugar
right?
made us
very
free.
right.
And international business, that's another thing. I mean, but that's a whole different conversation. But I mean, in terms of international business, that was actually one of the sectors that helped to prop up our economy, because
Indeed.
in in the past year, because when you look at the bulk of corporate tax receipts, they came from the international business sector, right? So I think that what the country needs to do, and it can't just be government deciding this, it has to be a whole of society approach.
A
We have,
conversation with the people, take
yeah,
people
have a
along on the journey.
conversation
Yeah.
with the people. There are lots of young people who have ideas and who want to get into different areas of export. Yes, you have Caribbean export, you have export Barbados, formerly BIDC and whatnot, but you have a lot of young people out there who would be able to help guide the economy towards more, productive sectors if they're given the opportunity of a hearing and a chance. And we got to improve business facilitation too, because, but don't even get me started on that.
The right tape and all that kind
The
of stuff.
right
You
tape.
know, I
Exactly.
know. Exactly. No, I just thought it would be interesting because, it's easy to say, hey, they just want the tourists. They just want the tourists, without recognizing how that permeates all the way down through society from an
Of course.
economic perspective and dealing with people's livelihoods. And it is the biggest generator. And I think sometimes when you talk about GDP and that kind of stuff, people don't necessarily see, well, what does that mean to me? But it's
Yeah.
a huge employer right across the region. And if you want to get back to earning money, many people want to do, this is going to play a part. So, but again, it might be again, as Philip said, the way how the message was crafted, or not, to bring people on board. Perhaps that was the case.
I mean, they were smart. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to
No, go
cut you,
ahead. You go
Andre.
ahead. No,
That
you
was
go.
going
You
to
go.
say that one of the innovative things that the government did was with regard to the welcome stamp. I don't think people really realize how, and I mean, I really wish that the guy who came up with the idea was really given the credit that he deserves. Peter Thompson Lawrence, I think that's his name. So,
Okay.
I think that that was one way in which they were able to still bring in persons, but more so from a long stay perspective, as opposed to the more short term perspective.
Hmm.
Because the truth is that when you think about it, when you look at the data on the table, the tourism receipts that we get don't really stay in the country, you know so even without COVID, we would have had to find a way to diversify, because tourism, I think, is one of those industries that has high revenues, yes, but also a lot of high expenditure, and a lot of it
Got it.
doesn't stay in the country.
Interesting.
Okay, no, that's good. Good insight there. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting to have a chat. But look, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us and have this conversation. Let us know what's happening in Barbados and what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago as well. But so we can just go around and just have final views a little bit. So Alicia, let's look ahead. Coming out of COVID, you just touched on a bit of it there just now as well. But coming out of COVID, as a region, what are you hoping we are seeing out of this? We're going to be optimistic. We in this resurgence, we got to deal with it. Our governments are trying to deal with it. Let's hope people take the vaccines, all that kind of stuff. But even looking forward, how do you see us coming out as a region? And what?
Okay, I will say to you what I say to my students all the time. When I was a political science student back in the 2000s, the same readings that I had from the 1960s applied then, and the same readings, when I mean readings, I mean in terms of the what's happening with the Caribbean war, problems or vulnerabilities, etc. Those readings I read from the 1960s applied in the 2000s, and they apply now. I'm hoping that we could leave this COVID moment in a post-COVID reality where we are a lot more diversified, we are a lot more integrated as a region. Because I fully support Caribbean integration, we're a lot more dependent and a lot more nice to each other in the region. Instead of I ain't want I don't like that Trinidad investing here, or I don't like that this body investing there. We will see the benefits of working together as a region. So that would be my hope.
For now, I can leave you to last. Dr. Lord, two things. Same question to you, but then a lot of countries in the region are flirting with mandatory vaccines as well. Your views. And then what do you think? What's your advice from a medical perspective to the region when it comes to where we are at the moment?
Yeah, mandatory vaccines. I think that is a very topical issue right now, and I would prefer not to mandate it, but I think that we could come to a area where we might have to um, encourage persons more to take the vaccines. We need to get the herd immunity. It's affecting our lives and livelihood, and that might be the only answer.
Across
Yes,
the
we have a
board, you
choice.
think, or by sector, like teachers, medical workers, hotel industry?
Well, definitely for the frontline workers. I think I'm surprised still that some of the frontline workers in the health industry as well as in the tourism industry who interact with persons who um, travel and could be bringing in the virus, although we test them and all that sort of thing, and still are hesitant. So we need to we might have to decide it. And we've seen in Barbados, you would have heard of some business places have said we're not doing business with persons, we're not having vendors at our location where the persons are not vaccinated, and it is going to that is the way that it's going to end up in Barbados. I think we have to do that. I have had situation, not to prolong it, where some individuals who have persons who work within their household, or personal trainers and so on, who are not taking the vaccine, and they've decided, well, I'm not dealing with that person anymore. The home health person or the helper,
Yeah.
the maid, who is not going to do the vaccine, but I just can't take it because I have my health concerns. I have to protect my family's health, and therefore that is where it's going to go. It's going to
Right.
end up that way. As far as the region is concerned, we need and the anti-vaxxers are concerned, we really need to be careful because we need to recognize that those persons that are encouraging us not to take the vaccine might not be those persons who will be there for you when you need the help. And
True.
therefore, that is something that we need to think about
Good
and
point.
look, go with the science. Yes, it's a changing environment, but go with the science. We need to help each other. We've been helping each other with vaccines. Uh, um, or Prime Minister, you mentioned about our Prime Minister took 2 weeks or something like that leave, but then our neighboring um, Prime Minister that's just a rock stone away, he got struck in his head. Prime Minister Gonzalez,
Yeah,
she had
Gonzalez.
to facilitate him.
Yeah.
So things like this happen. Prime Minister Chastanier, he he was defeated in the elections, and I'm not sure if he's unhappy with that because obviously it takes a lot of up his load. It's not an easy time to be in charge of a
For a
government at
leader.
this time. But I think the challenges are not unsurmountable, and I think that we can fight this virus and succeed and get things back so that Bonnet could earn her living
You
Thank
know,
you.
the way she
because
loves to in the future.
because
Thank
I did at the first concert. Hopefully, if I come on to Trinidad, I hope a concert happening around the same time so I could come and listen. Vonette, as we look to close out, what's your advice, your word of encouragement to people as they're trying to get through this time and even looking forward as well?
I think, and it's something I've been saying throughout this pandemic time. If we understand or if we practice a bit of empathy, it will make this thing a whole lot easier for a lot of people. As I was saying before, the persons who are unaffected, who are complaining about those who want the place to open up, sit and think for a minute. Just think for a minute. What is this person's position? Why is this person so adamant that things go back to normal? Yeah, understand? Just sit down and think about how we all feel. Just like I'm as much as I'm a pro-vaccine, I'm also thinking about the anti-vaxxers or the persons who are a bit hesitant and understanding their hesitance as well. Understanding why you're hesitant. I need you to understand why I made my decision. Just a little empathy. If we practice empathy, we could talk about economics and we could talk about how we could get the economy back. But we just need, this is a time where we absolutely need to understand and be there for each other, to reach out to one another, reach out to, because there are persons who are going through really, really bad times mentally. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a neighbor, and just try to make, do this social thing and make it a little more, make it a little better for each other. Let's forget all the high hanging fruits and just try to, just think about each other during this time because we're all going through a very challenging time.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you there. I think that's I think we talk about it earlier sometimes when people see themselves being affected, the natural thing is to think about self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we just in this position right now where think about self, but you got to think about others at the same
Yeah.
time. And if you look at both ways, you think about others and assume others thinking about you, and everyone doing the quote unquote right thing, protocols and what's not in place, and even vaccinations, then we get through this.
Yeah.
Not just regionally, but globally, we will get through this. And I think, as Phil was talking about tribalism, try and see if we could get rid of some of that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Indeed.
Now is not the time for that. You can get back to that when we get back to normal. If that's you, get back to that in a few months' time. But now, let's just, as individuals, come together, get through this so we can get back to some kind of normality in some form or fashion. But guys, I want to thank you guys for stopping by in the living room and just keeping things moving. Guys in the audience, thank the guys for dropping in as well and having a really good, interesting and fun conversation as well, because it's a heavy topic, but I think we managed to still put a bit of levity in there sometimes, but while still getting the message over and having a very serious discussion. And thank you guys for stopping by. I really, really, really appreciate that. So thanks a lot.
And thank you for the invitation.
Yes.
No, anytime,
Again.
anytime,
And
anytime.
Alicia, keep the flame burning brightly ever.
Oh, yes, but of course. Off and on, off and on.
They went to the same school. Only Bajans will understand this school thing.
Like some kind of school connection there.
Yeah. It's stronger in some schools than others.
It is true. It is true.
Yeah. But thank you guys for stopping by. It's been
Yep,
great
and
having
thanks
you.
to the audience. Bye.
Hey, no problem at all. Thanks. Good convo there, Phil.
Yeah, that was good. Good. We cover a lot of ground.
We did actually cover quite a lot of different areas there, from mental health, from the economy and how people are doing
Tourism.
and what's not. Tourism. Yeah. Well, because this is impacting everything.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
I think in the past you might have been dealing with one thing. Hurricane would come, it blows down the house. Yes, that impacts the economy and what's not with tourism. But there's something specific you're dealing with. Even though it might take long, you rebuild and that kind of stuff. You get the electricity back on, water flowing. It might take some time, but you keep things moving. This, on the other hand, is one of these things that is just touching everything. Is quote unquote is invisible.
Yeah.
Is not necessarily impacting everyone the same way, thus the different attitudes towards it. From a health perspective, actually, from an economic perspective, I think it is affecting most people the same way. And that's why you got to be touching a lot of different things, when you're talking about this.
Interesting enough, I saw someone in the audience, I wish I could remember who it was, who said that the panel is not balanced in their views. And that did challenge me a little bit, because I was thinking, I actually don't know a lot of anti-vaxxers. A lot of my circle would be very much pro-vaccine, which led me to start thinking, is there some sort of social distribution of people who have a particular ideology or stance regarding vaccination?
Don't know.
So I don't know. But I
Don't know, actually. I don't know many either, actually, to be honest with you. I know probably two. But I wouldn't call them anti-vaxxers. I would say that they actually are hesitant because they just feel there's a lot of noise.
Okay, so you have a little spectrum there happening.
Yeah, because anti-vaxxers, and I think this is where we got to be careful as well, because if you label someone anti-vaxxer, you're assuming that they're arguing against something, and but not everyone is arguing against it. They're just hesitant for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's different than what I would call a anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, because they might actually be against vaccines globally as well.
There's some people who don't take vaccines at all. We say that our kids get the vaccines, but at that time they may have had no choice. When they were 3 years old. As they got older, they say, no, I don't want to take vaccines. And there are a lot of people like that. Not necessarily that they're out there trying to provide a lot of conspiracy theory against it. They might just go, no, I don't want it.
I don't need it.
And that's something as a society we got to figure out how we deal with that. You know, yeah, it's just something we got to figure out how we deal with that. But look, next week we're gonna be back with Mark, and let's hope I think he should be on his way driving back home now from Huddersfield. I don't know if he's home yet.
Tears in his eyes, man.
You think he cried?
I think so.
You think so?
I think so.
I
Yeah.
don't know, you know.
He might need a hug.
He can cry here fever. He can say, oh, yeah.
He's that one. He's the overdrive.
Yeah, he's do that way, you know. Yeah, here fever. But no, it's been a proud moment for Corbin, his first son off to university and doing well. We obviously know them well from the time he was a young boy, and he's doing some great things as well. So he's going to be one to look out for. I'm sure Kyle is, and I'm sure Mark is. You know, next week we'll give him some therapy sessions next week and help him get through the week. And what's not.
We can only try.
Yeah, you only try. I think so. You try. Well, look, guys, thank you so much for staying with us for the past couple of hours. As usual, hit the share button, bring as many of your friends and network, into the conversation as well. They weren't privy to have it live like you were, but hey, I think the watch back is just as good sometimes as well. So please do that. If you haven't already, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well. We're there, We Global or We Global Media. We're here almost every Sunday, 3 o'clock if you're in the Caribbean, 2 o'clock in Jamaica, 8 o'clock here in the UK, although the clock's soon going back. But we're still keeping the same Caribbean time. Don't worry about that. But look, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for being with us. Until next time. That was good. Good conversation.
Yeah, enjoy that. Good to meet another Colombian.